Hello, my name is Uli Hanisch. I'm standing here right in the middle of the Neue Berliner Strasse, the permanent Backlot street in Studio Babelsberg or at Studio Babelsberg. It's a very rainy, lousy and cold day. I'm all on my own. It's very sad actually. To prove how sad it is, I will show you the whole thing. Come with me. Look here. That's our Thorsten Klein Square, very famous. You can see a bit of Kreuzberg already. Nobody here, very lonely. And Charlottenburg, nobody here. So of course, it's always a little magic trick here for the street to come alive. In this case, you just have to turn the camera the other way around and then you will see what happens. Everybody here, surprise! Say hello, hello! That's how we are here. And now we start. We have started to design this in 2015 for the German TV series Babylon Berlin, and the chance was, the good surprise was that Studio Babelsberg at that point needed to have a new permanent Backlot street because they have teared down the old one after 20 years. And we for Babylon Berlin were desperately looking for a chance how to capture all kinds of street locations for a period series. So we combined our forces and said, okay, we would be able to design actually the whole Backlot street for our purposes for Babylon Berlin exclusively in the beginning, and kind of leave it here as a permanent Backlot street for Studio Babelsberg. So the concept from the beginning on was for us not to be very specific in terms of where characters would live or stuff like this. It's not like the Sonnenallee always used to be the specific street. We said we want to have something like a micro version of the city of Berlin, in a way capturing all kind of different aspects of the architecture. So in order to do this, we had the idea to say we are kind of building 4 streets, combining a full block. That's why also it's not really a street, it's almost more like a block of 4 streets. And we want to capture the more, let's say, elaborate architecture, which we call Charlottenburg over here. Behind there is Kreuzberg, which is like a little bit the worker area, and then we will lead it into the poorer area, the very kind of run-down neighborhood and architecture of what we call the wedding. A kind of a middle line here being a kind of a business and nightlife street, which we call Friedrichstraße. Yes. So we would have the Mokka FT here. We have the department store over here. Have more like business buildings left and right. Now we're gonna start and take a look at Charlottenburg. Come on. Charlottenburg Street, as you can see, the architecture here is pretty broad, wide and elaborate. Daniel designed most of it. Yes. He's actually still one of the best designers I know, but that's another story.
We did some quite intensive research with black and white pictures from archives, which were high-res, and we could really find out some details which we liked, and we just combined many of those details into what you see here. And the most important thing is we designed the buildings in total, including the roofs, just to get an idea how does the whole street look like. But we knew always that it's only going to be around 12 meters, what you see here. But we just needed to understand somehow how does the street gonna look like. You know?
So what we did really is starting with this building as the biggest and most elaborate, almost like a palace. Exactly. And every facade next to each other becomes less and less and less and less rich and kind of smaller, simpler, and more plain, down to the last one. In total we have a row of how many facades here?
It's around 30 facades which we have here.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it really from facade to facade. It's getting easier and easier and easier and easier. And that's, in this sense, all of a sudden it became kind of like a fluid thing. And you can even move with the car and do circuits. And you never have the feeling there is like a harsh break in between the styles. And that was kind of, I remember, the most important invention. And, you know, we came up and saying, okay, that's the way it works, really.
Do we do the drawings with CAD drawings, digital drawings, or do we do them analog? And we decided to do them with pencils because we were just faster to do all the ornaments. You know, if you have like a head or a special ornament around the door. It was just easier to do some scribbles. But what we just didn't realize how big those elements are. Like on this entrance there, you see those two ladies, and we call it the twin sisters. And when I first saw them in the atelier, when they show us how they look like, they were just immense. And we thought like, what is it? What is it? And it was just this little thing we draw on the drawing, you know. So yeah.
Okay, now we are at the first kind of crossing leading from Charlottenburg into Kreuzberg, where you can see we also started to change the surface of the streets, because this is like all real. This is like an asphalt surface, and here we had those cobblestones. The pavements have this old kind of classic Berlin pavement stones, so to say, which is all real. So this is one of the really rare interiors we have here at the Backlot Street. It's actually, most of the facades are actually only facades. There's nothing else behind the doors or the windows happening. But this was from the beginning on one of the rare, actually almost the only shop interior, and that's of course we did that because we wanted at a certain point some sort of a connection between interior and exterior, to have at least a chance here and there to have some connections and some views with the real distances and perspectives.
The only thing we did is also some balconies. That was also important, to have just balconies where we could shoot from inside and outside. But then that was the only one here. Yeah.
Again, we had this kind of strange decision to come up with a kind of a blank facade, which we kind of described as a factory whatever. So we kind of left it pretty blank.
So this wall which you see there is actually a gate which you can open. That's why it looks like this.
It's like an emergency kind of safety thing, which again you sometimes even have on a backlot. You know, this kind of stuff.
We're always inventing some stuff like a cinema or something.
Yes. And this is actually the most boring background, sort of. So we either ignore it and really kind of only look like this, so you can hardly see it, or we add something. Sometimes we could use it for, you know, an amount of posters and stuff, or political, like graffiti.
Or light signs for
and again, of course, those two corners are very often used with green screen. In order to get some sort of a street extension. So if you do something like Babylon Berlin, we were actually changing the shops while they were shooting on the other side. So we had like 3, 4, 5 shops in here permanently changing.
That stone is real, but the building...
So I mean we use a kind of a strong wood, because it needs to. They want to use it for about at least 15 years, and then it's plastered. But then you have all the ornaments on the stones, and that's all made out of foam. It's cut out of a black kind of foam, you know, which was plastered again. It's black because you always have some damages. And in the older street it was white, you know, and then you always immediately saw it. So now you won't see it in the first sight. So yeah, that's how we did it. So that was all cut out. Yeah.
From the Babylon Berlin side of life, we were like a client. On the other hand, we were building it in the name of Studio Babelsberg. So the whole budgetary thing was kind of complicated. Roughly speaking, I think it's no secret to say the whole cost was about 9 million euro. That was the approximate cost at that time. Yes. And of course you could never do this kind of amount of excessive building or construction for something like a TV series without having a strong partner like Studio Babelsberg in the back, who will then kind of use it permanently ever since. You know, still we are very grateful. Thank you, Studio Babelsberg. We had 2 or 3 facades, I think, in Charlottenburg, where we had some very prominent kind of decoration elements framing the doors and stuff like this. I think also the twin sisters are removable in a way, so you can take them away and replace it with something else. Here we were building up to the 2nd or 3rd floor, however, up to between 12 and 15 meters, always with the idea of saying, of course we designed the entire building, the entire facade, but because we have only we have only built part of it, it's easier also to change the rest of the facade digitally. So the buildings can actually start changing more via the digital extension.
Also, an important thing is that what we did is that this is an original street size, because in the older backlot, also the windows, the higher you get, the smaller they
had a forced perspective.
Forced perspective, and we decided not to do it, because when we shoot Babylon Berlin, it's crowded with cars, and just to have the realistic measurements, you know, and that's also a thing.
Yes, I think coming back to your kind of question is what you do when you use it for a series, and you have still only 4 streets in a way with like 4 corner or intersections. In a way, you end up needing an amount of more than 40 locations within the script. So you need to change it entirely. So what you do is you change the shop signs. You change the backgrounds of the background, so to say. You do night or day, which changes the surrounding entirely. You do wet down, and you do smoke, and you do rain. We are inside the little courtyard system we have built. The reason behind it is, as I said before, it's a very important part of the Berlin architecture that you always have these gates and little courtyards leading maybe to another courtyard and another one. In the beginning, we thought of kind of connecting the gates and the gateways right next to each other so you can have a look through, but then of course we realized it's a completely stupid idea, because what you don't want to do is look from the wedding directly into Charlottenburg. So we decided to kind of put them all apart and created as many kind of access and camera positions as possible. So you have like the one, everything is kind of intercutting and overlapping in a way. So you have this one leading to the wedding. This again goes to Kreuzberg again, which always has this kind of overlapping kind of elements. And again, then you can see the one here, which is bigger in size and has a different kind of feel leading into Charlottenburg. And here we did this kind of extra version of it, which becomes also a little side alley, which goes around the corner and comes back to the street. And then also Dani has a surprise, which is he will show right now. Look up there. Or not? Oh. Ah, magic. So I don't know. I can't really tell how many times it was used before. Dani, do you bravo? Do you have a memory how many times this was used? Or the trip once?
I think once.
Well, we don't know. So I think we use this courtyard really quite often and pretty intensely, and nobody never came up with the idea saying we've seen it before.
This one works very well, and we have some windows which we can shoot, and yeah. The only thing is that you always have to repaint it. So if you look from Charlottenburg, it's way too dark right now, so we have to make it brighter. That's also kind of an issue.
Yeah,
but
painting and repainting and aging and re-aging.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And now we are really into the poor wedding. Of course, what maybe is interesting to say at that point is every backlot street works at the same time as a system where you can which is fluid, so you can really move. Can move cars. You can run. You can do all sort of things like this, but also always to think about it in bits and pieces. So you really say we're shooting this scene in front of the shop and a totally different one right around the corner, which is then also supposed to be somewhere else. So you have to split your mind somehow.
That's quite difficult, yeah.
It's fun also.
It's fun, but also.
Okay, come on.
this is the wood I was talking, which just is, I don't know how it's called in English, but it's this kind of wood you use in trucks, whatever, which is quite durable, which we use for the facades. And here also sometimes you see the scaffoldings that's just used that you can reach the windows. In case of you want to shoot the windows sequence, but what else we can say? And of course you have roofs everywhere around, and you need to lead the rainwater down, so it's more like quite of a real architecture as well, which we had to think about, which actually the construction manager from Studio Babelsberg was planning everything. It wasn't us.
No, I think what was really helpful again was that we were working together with the workshops of the art department, Studio Babelsberg, which had a tremendous amount of experience with building, keeping, rebuilding, and so on, of all kind of backlot streets, because they had one before for so many years. So the first thing they said, we will never do it with a regular construction scaffolding anymore. We want to build our own kind of scaffolding, because we want to have it here for at least 15, 20 years. So they came up with this huge structure. Then they said, okay, this is, I think what you meant is that we have this kind of waterproof
Exactly.
wooden boards, which are the base of the whole thing, of the whole facade. And it's wood still, it's pretty waterproof and very heavy. And then from the outside, of course, you had all those grid materials, and then putting on plaster and all this kind of like real facade material. So it becomes, it's quite a real substantial structure, really.
Exactly.
You cannot do a window decoration or dressing, let's say, in a random way, because they kind of have to make sense. So of course you need to have like matching windows, because like two windows are obviously like one room, and maybe the other windows belong to the same apartment. So then we had our set decoration crew at this time, and we were trying to calculate how many fabrics we need, how much time we need to bring them up, how many people we need, and we had no idea how to calculate it. And in the end, I think we had a crew, I would say, of 10 people, using I think minimum 6 weeks to do all the dressing. It took way longer than we thought. It was way more expensive. And of course we had like the one mastermind set decorator, Ingeborg Bachmann, who had to come up with really an idea, who lives there, and she could tell you at that time, like for every window, for every kind of corner, for every building, a kind of made up family or person who lives there. So she was kind of able to come up with some sort of the right decoration. Otherwise it would have just looked like nothing and shit. And the moment, and it was really fascinating, because facades, everything, street, everything was kind of ready at this point, and then they started to cover the windows. And the moment all the windows were covered with the right curtains, from one day to the other, the street kind of came alive at this point. So it's a very underestimated kind of aspect, because you think, yeah, you have some whatever kind of piece of fabric behind the window, but it's kind of as you say, the eyes, the windows are the eyes of a building, and of course the eyes need, in this case, kind of makeup to look good. So it became a huge thing. Some more words about digital extensions here, back on Friedrichstraße, which had this kind of issues saying we have the streets coming from the wedding from Charlottenburg, so sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. The Mokka FD, which is actually the only building we designed specifically for Babylon Berlin as the Mokka FD, which takes place in our series. Then this kind of department store over here, which we kind of never really used, but we had the idea saying all the architecture here is kind of commercially based and more grand. At the same time, it only really works with massive extensions. So on either side here you have the green screen, because that's the end of the estate, and you have a street behind it, so it's easier to cover it with green screen. But the moment we shoot here, you usually have the green screen here, another green screen there, and most of the time another green screen here. Many times we don't do the green screen just behind the end of the decoration, let's say, but really in front of it, again, to cover and to say we only want to use the corner building, we don't want to see this building again, or we don't want to see the department store again, so we cover it. So even though you are in a fully built backlot street, you want to cover it again just in order to change the background so it's more lively. I mean, it's a very kind of rainy and gloomy day today anyway. It looks pretty much like a little architectural graveyard. But the moment you have the dressing coming in, you have cars here, you have the extras, you have all the shop windows dressed, you have more stuff happening on the street. It comes pretty much alive. Plus when you have the shooting crew coming in, and the shooting crew is, let's say, shooting at this corner, they have special effects, they have rain, they have water, they have wet down, they have whatever, cars again moving. We would still operate on in some other corners, changing shop signs again. So it's like a huge ballet, and it's very lively, and it kind of makes sense and works. And it's fun to be here, really.
It's great, yeah, actually.
That's it for now. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for coming here on this really lousy and cold day. It's not a joke, it's very cold, it's very rainy, it's very windy, so we're all glad that it's over. It was good fun. Thank you for your interest. Good luck with everything, and bye-bye from Berlin. Wiedersehen.